Have you ever felt crushed by the weight of someone else's cruel words? Maybe you've been singled out or criticized just for living your faith or being true to yourself. What if I told you there's a way to find peace, even when it feels like the world is against you? It's not just about tuning out the haters. It's about discovering why trusting God's timing and his promise to be your vindicator truly sets you free. Romans 12:19 says, "Vengeance is mine. I will repay," says the Lord. That's not just a comforting thought, it's a real promise you can lean on, especially when the criticism gets loud. But why does it seem like the more your faith grows, the more people have something to say about it? Let's talk about why the criticism can hit hardest when you're stepping into your purpose. Sometimes when you start living out your faith more boldly, you'll notice the critics get louder. But here's the real question. Why do haters even show up, and what do their words actually mean for you? The truth is, opposition often pops up when something important is happening in your life. When God is moving, not everyone is going to be happy about it. Joel Osteen puts it simply, there will always be people who are jealous, envious, or just plain negative. Not everyone will like you or support what God is doing in your story, but that doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. In fact, it can be a sign that you're right where you're supposed to be. Think about Joseph's story in the Bible. His brothers betrayed him, selling him into slavery because they couldn't handle the favor God put on his life. Later, even when things seemed to improve, he was falsely accused and thrown in prison. It looked like everything was stacked against him. But here's what's powerful. Joseph himself said in Genesis 50:20, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." What looked like a setback was actually setting him up for something greater. God's plan used the very actions of his haters to bring about a bigger purpose, saving his family and countless others. It's easy to wonder why God doesn't just shield us from all the negativity. Why let people hurt us or talk behind our backs? But God sees the bigger picture. Romans 8:28 reminds us, God works all things together for good for those who love him. That means every harsh word, every betrayal, and every challenge can be woven into something good, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time. The Bible uses the image of refining by fire to describe how God works in us through adversity. Proverbs 17:3 says, "The crucible for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the heart." Just like gold is purified in the fire, our hearts are strengthened and refined through tough experiences. The criticism and opposition you face aren't just random. They're part of a process that can bring out the best in you, shaping you into who God wants you to be. Nobody enjoys being criticized or misunderstood. It can feel isolating and discouraging. But sometimes the very people trying to tear you down are unknowingly helping you step into your purpose. Their negativity can push you closer to God, forcing you to rely on him and see yourself through his eyes, not theirs. So the next time you feel weighed down by someone's harsh words or actions, remember Joseph. Remember that God is still at work, even when things look bleak. The haters in your life don't have the final say. God does. He can use even the worst situations for good, and his plan for you is bigger than any criticism or betrayal. All of this raises an important question. If God is working behind the scenes, how should you respond when you're attacked or misunderstood? Is there a better way than fighting back? Let's look at what it really means to let God defend you. When you're facing criticism, it's easy to feel like you have to defend yourself at every turn. The urge to speak up, to set the record straight, or to push back is strong. But there's a different kind of strength in letting God be the one who stands up for you. The Bible gives us a powerful example in 1 Peter 2:23, where it describes Jesus. When they hurled their insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Instead, he entrusted himself to him who judges justly. Jesus could have responded to every accusation, but he chose to trust God with the outcome. That's not weakness. It's a deep confidence in God's justice. Letting God defend you doesn't mean you ignore what's happening or pretend it doesn't hurt. It means you decide not to let someone else's negativity shape your actions or your heart. Instead of fighting back with words or anger, you put on the armor God gives you. Ephesians 6:11-12 says, "Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world." That armor isn't just for ancient battles. It's for every day you feel attacked, misunderstood, or unfairly judged. God's promise to defend you is clear. Isaiah 54:17 says, "No weapon formed against you will prosper, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you." That's not just a comforting thought, it's a guarantee that God sees what's happening and is already working on your behalf. When you trust Him to handle your battles, you're not giving up control. You're choosing the strongest defense possible. It's normal to wonder if staying silent or stepping back means people will believe the worst or that nothing will ever change. But the Bible shows again and again that God honors those who trust Him with their reputation and their pain. Sometimes letting God defend you means walking away from an argument, refusing to spread gossip, or simply choosing kindness in the face of hostility. It's not about pretending the hurt doesn't exist. It's about believing God can bring justice in ways you can't. There are real stories of people who chose not to fight back and saw God work things out in ways they never expected. Maybe someone at work tried to undermine you, but months later, your integrity was recognized and your influence grew. Or maybe you kept quiet when friends talked behind your back, and over time, the truth came out without you having to say a word. Sometimes God's defense is immediate, other times it unfolds slowly. But every time it's more complete and lasting than anything you could do on your own. This kind of trust isn't always easy. It means letting go of your own need to control the outcome and believing that God's timing and justice are better than yours. But there's a freedom that comes with it, a peace that lets you move forward without carrying the weight of every insult or attack. You might be asking, though, how can you actually tell when God is working things out for you? Sometimes it's not obvious, and you're left wondering if anything is happening at all. Recognizing God's hand in your journey often means learning to see beyond what's right in front of you. We all want answers and quick fixes, but God's way is about growth, not shortcuts. James 1:2-4 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." That's a promise. When you're in the middle of a hard season, God is building something lasting in you, even if it doesn't look like progress right away. Picture it like planting a seed. You put it in the ground, water it, and for a long time, nothing seems to happen. There's just dirt. But under the surface, where you can't see, the seed is changing. Roots are forming, and one day a sprout appears. That's how God works, quietly, steadily, and often out of sight. The waiting can feel endless, but the growth is real. Trusting the process means accepting that you might not see the results until much later, but that doesn't mean God isn't moving. Job's story is a clear example. He lost everything, his health, his wealth, and his family. Everyone around him tried to explain his suffering or told him to give up. But Job held on to his faith, saying, "Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him." He didn't pretend the pain wasn't real, but he believed God had a purpose he couldn't see. In the end, God restored what Job had lost and used his story as a lesson about faith and trust for generations to come. Job's journey shows that God's plan might not make sense in the moment, but it's always working towards something good. Esther's story is another reminder of how God works behind the scenes. She wasn't born into power, but she ended up in a position to save her entire people. Esther's courage to act, even when it put her at risk, changed everything. Proverbs 21:21 says, "Whoever pursues righteousness and love finds life, prosperity, and honor." Esther stepped into her calling by doing what was right and loving her people, even when it was hard. Looking back, every twist in her journey was part of God's plan, even if she couldn't see it at the time. We also see this in Daniel's life. Thrown into a den of lions for holding to his faith, Daniel trusted God when things looked hopeless. Daniel 6:22 tells us that God sent an angel to shut the lions' mouths, and Daniel walked out unharmed. That moment wasn't just luck, it was God's timely intervention, a reminder that He can deliver you right when you need it most. In our own lives, recognizing God's hand often means looking for the ways He gives us peace or strength when we need it, or how He opens doors we didn't expect. Sometimes it's just the ability to keep going when everything feels heavy. Joyce Meyer says that trusting God means letting go of the need to know every step and believing He'll take care of you. It's about finding peace, even when you don't have all the answers, and learning to trust that God is working even in silence. As you start to notice these moments, you realize your worth and your story aren't defined by what others say or by the challenges you face. They're shaped by the steady, faithful hand of God guiding you through every season. And understanding that changes the way you see yourself and your struggles, setting you free from the weight of criticism and doubt. When negativity comes your way, remember that bullying and criticism don't define you. Your worth is anchored in God's love and purpose for your life. Psalm 139:14 says, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Nothing, not harsh words, not rejection, can separate you from that truth. Every doubt and every wound God can use for good if you trust Him with it. This week, I encourage you to memorize Romans 12:19 and pray daily for God's justice in your life. And let's build each other up. Leave a comment below with the verse that reminds you of God's vindication. Stay blessed by the best, friends.